Okay, so to start our first session, I would like to invite our first speaker. Please apologize me if I pronounce your names wrong. And Giovanni Ciaramella?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So we're going to speak on the topic on the effectiveness of generative adversarial network for data augmentation in malware detection. Giovanni, it's over to you.
Thank you. Good afternoon to everyone. I hope you can hear me. My name is Giovanni Ciaramella. I'm from IoT School for Advanced Study in Lucca, where I'm a PhD, and also from Institute for Informatics and Telematics of CNR, where I'm a research associated researcher. Today I will introduce you our research project named on the effectiveness of generative adversarial networks for data augmentation in malware detection. But before starting, I will provide you just a brief introduction. So, artificial intelligence raised over the years, and just to say what is artificial intelligence, Google provides us a broader definition where they say that artificial intelligence is a field of science concerned with building computers and machines that can reason, learn and act in such a way that would normally require human intelligence, or that involves data whose scale exceeds what humans can analyze. So the artificial intelligence, as I said before, is raised, and also the investment in AI increases. For example, in 2022, companies started to invest 92 billions of USD in AI, while in 2024 it's doubled to 180 billions of USD. For example, AI is widely adopted in several companies like finance, where 20% of the companies use that. Also, 38% of risk industry also use that. Of course, it's also used in computer science fields, where it's adopted in NLP, computer vision, and robotics. And of course, nowadays is also adopted in cybersecurity. So cybersecurity is another hot topic nowadays. For example, also in cybersecurity, companies started to invest a lot of money. For example, in 2023, 24.3 billion of USD were invested, and it's expected that in 2030, cybersecurity investment will reach 134 billion of USD. The problem of the artificial intelligence in computer security is about dataset. Also because the dataset in many cases is limited. So in this research work, what we are proposing is a method to identify the best type of data augmentation for Android malware detection. And to do that, we apply the three different GANs and traditional augmentation techniques. We used the original datasets of malware and trustworthy SECAI files converted into images, and we employed two CNNs belonging to the state-of-the-art, like standard CNN and Inception filter. These two demonstrate how augmentation improves robustness and accuracy in detection and detecting malware. So let's go to see the method the pipeline that we followed. We started using Android application. We executed that, and from that we extracted system codes. After that, we compose our dataset. As I said before, we employed original datasets and dataset obtained using augmentation. And after that, we performed several experiments to obtain a good classification. The first task is the Android application, and of course, before to do that, we downloaded the APK files. In detail, we downloaded over 3,000 applications, both for trusted and malware application. And in detail, the trustworthy application were retrieved from Google Play using a Python script written by the authors. And regarding the malicious application, we employed a state-of-the-art dataset named Generative, which is composed of several types of malware. And in detail, we used the most numerous families like fake installer, Langton, OPK file, and so on and so forth. Of course, to provide the maliciousness or the trustworthy of the APK files, we submitted them to Mercaldo. After that, we take each application, each APK, and we executed them on the an emulator, performing several events. In detail, we performed 25 operating system events. And the choice of using these 25 operating system events, it was not randomly, but was based on, on several research belonging to the state-of-the-art, which are mentioned in this slide. And of course, in these slides, we also reported the events that we take into account, like SMS service, battery empty, action power connection, scan results, and so on and so forth. After that, we extracted system codes, and to do that, we leverage Linux command, such as trace -spid, and this allowed us to see each system code during the APK file execution. In detail, after that, we linked to each system code a specific RGB code, and we converted each system code that we retrieved in a two-dimensional array, which is a matrix. And as a result, we obtained these images. On the left, you can see a trusted samples belonging to the app Hero Sports, while on the right, you can see a malware sample belonging to Airpush family. After that, we created the dataset, and of course, the real dataset, the original dataset, was on over 300 images. Application converted into images, both for trusted and malware application. While regarding the data augmentation, as we know, data augmentation is the technique used to increase the size of the dataset by making small transformation to existing data, such as rotating, flipping, or crop images. And this helps to improve generalization and robustness of machine learning models, especially in the computer vision task. What we have done is using, first of all, the standard data augmentation. Standard data augmentation generally is composed of geometric transformations such as rotating, translate, scaling, and flipping, also color and brightness modification, cropping and empathic addition, or noise injection. But here the main problem is these techniques may lose or distort image information. So a practical solution is preparing simple geometric transformation, like in our case, using only the flipping. Moreover, here is possible to see the flipping that we employed. On the left, you can see the malware horizontal flipping, where on the right, the trusted horizontal flipping, and of course the vertical, we also applied the vertical flipping. After that, we also used 3 different GANs. The first one is the DC GAN, introduced in 2015, VUGAN, introduced in 2017, and an improvement of the VUGAN, which is the VUGAN GP, which adds gradient penalty to enforce Lipschitz the constraint. Sorry for the pronunciation. Here it's possible to see the images that we retrieved after the usage of the GAN algorithms. On the right, on the left, you can see the malware, while on the right is trusted application. Here in this table is possible to see the number of the original and augmented malware and trusted samples. And after that, we performed several experiments. Specifically to do that, we employed a grid search algorithm, which allowed us to perform several models and allowed us to identify the best hyperparameters to reach great accuracy. Here we can see the number of ebooks, websites, learning rate, which was modified during the execution of the grid search algorithm, while the image size was standard. And regarding the results that we obtained during the training validation and test phases, best results were obtained using standard augmentation, which allowed us in the model using the training using the Inception V3 architecture, allowed us to reach an accuracy of 0.93 compared to 0.81 obtained using the original dataset. While using the standard CNN, we obtained an accuracy of 0.92 using standard data augmentation compared to 0.77 using the original dataset. Of course, to be sure that the model were not trained overfitting, we also plotted the trends of the accuracy during training and validation for both models that we trained. Also, the loss was plotted, and to be sure, we also checked the accuracy gap for Inception and standard CNN models. And here we can see that the gap is quite similar, also because the peak was reached with a gap of 0.004. During the test, at the end of the test, we also generated the confusion matrix. And here it is possible to denote that the Inception V3 model is able to identify better malware. This happens in 601 cases, while standard CNN in 474. While on the other hand, we have standard CNN which can recognize better trusted samples, and this happened in 586 compared to 566 using the Inception V3. So here we can see also the plots of the improvement that we reached using the augmentation techniques that we employed. And the best model that we identified in this paper related to the data augmentation was the standard data augmentation. The latter different from the other methods in that it does not modify the image during the generation, but preserves the feature, increasing the diversity. On the other hand, about GAN algorithms, we achieved best results using the CGAN, and the best results can be attributed to the convolution and the convolution architecture, which can capture local visual structure, generating diverse and realistic synthetic samples. On the other hand, we have the Boolean, which employs the post-staying distance, which have to smooth training but generates less different and less sharp images. In detail, most of the images generated using Boolean algorithm presents fewer color, focusing on blue scale images for malware, while dark yellow for trusted samples. And regarding the improvement of GAN, such as the GAN GP. It happens to stabilize training using gradient penalty regulation, but limiting the diversity of the generated data. So let's go forward to the conclusion, doing a brief recap. What we have done, we built a dataset from system calls of malware and trusted Android applications. We expanded the datasets using the horizontal and vertical flipping, and we generated some samples using GAN-based algorithms. And as the last one step, we trained and evaluated several models using Inception v3 standards and CNN architecture on all the datasets. Regarding the future works, we will validate and compare augmentation performances across different operating systems. We would also study effects only using the final level generated images and explore other GAN variants. And of course, we would apply the explainability to improve the interpretability of GAN-based augmentation and classification results. So, we are grateful for receiving comments, observation, and of course, any collaboration. And with this, I concluded. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you for the interesting presentation. Let's open the questions.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. It was very interesting. So, my question is just a curiosity. So, you mentioned at the beginning of your presentation that in order to build the data sets, you took a lot of different APKs and you did a dynamic analysis with the stress, right? So there are many malwares who can employ runtime analysis tricks in order to detect if they are emulated and then act differently and maybe invoke different system calls or avoid malicious behavior. Did you see in your experimentation this kind of behaviors, and how can you evaluate how these behaviors can impact the quality of the results?
Okay, thank you for the question. To be honest, no. We didn't take it under analysis, and maybe it would be a good point to start the future works. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you for the nice talk. My question would be about the encoding to the image. So, how did you come up with the encoding for certain events to colors, or did you have any other considerations, and how did you come up with the final encoding of the?
Did you mean about the choice of the code that we?
Yeah. Did you have any other ideas of encoding it, like numerical, or was it just about images, and why did you choose colors and which colors? So were there any considerations?
Okay. Regarding the colors, we usually use random color, and in our algorithm, we that no color should be taken into account 2 times. So it's unique color. It's just to represent just the system call in this case, or other events, or for example, opcode in other research we publish. As I said, we used these methods for other datasets. For example, for Windows environment, we retrieved the code using another Linux command by applying other colors. So the choice of the colors is completely random. Even for the white in this case, or the black in other cases, because in many cases we need to create perfect square. So in many cases the number of the system calls or the opcode is not perfect. So we need to use the padding. So in many cases we use black or white. Yes.
Okay.
presentation. I have a question on your data pipeline. So, because you add augmentation, where do the augmented samples come into play? Do you mix them randomly over the training, validation, and test sets? Do you keep them only for validation purposes, or do you only use them in the test set?
Of course, the augmentation, the data were used only during the training.
Okay.
Of course, to not validate the performance.
So
it was
zero
used.
augmented samples made by way of training or testing.
Yeah, it was only during the training.
And did you consider, because this is of course the expected outcome of sampling in this way, is that you gain a modest to even substantial increase in performance because you doubled your amount of input data, and it is relatively similar. Did you consider that you could, for example, create a fully new test set because you have the data extraction methods, you did them for the paper as well, so you could have taken entirely new malware samples from the database or new cleanware samples from the database and use those as sort of a hidden validation set. This is the method that's typically used on Kaggle to see if your final performance is actually substantially better or if it's just simply better due to having more samples, having had more samples to train on.
If I understood correctly, you asked me if we use other application for the test, right?
Yeah, a hidden test set. The one you would use at the very end to see if your models that were trained with augmentation are in fact more capable.
Yeah, no. As is described in the literature, the test is use different application related to training and validation. So by definition, the test is completely different. What you are asking, and what I understand, is use another data sets. Okay, no.
I would highly recommend trying this because the Kaggle way of given training, validation, and test sets is very good for doing initial experimentation, and then for the final analysis, it's useful to have like sort of a holdout test set. Typically, very, very insightful results to gain from that.
Okay, thank you for the question.
Any other questions? Very quick one.
Yeah, okay, I'm trying to make it.
So if I understood it correctly, in these images, like the color encodes the type of the system call, and the position of the pixel encodes when in time the system call was executed. Since this seems to be a quite linear data, or maybe a time sequence, have you thought about maybe not encoding it in an image, in a two-dimensional image way, but rather doing it in like a time series way, and then maybe augmenting data that way?
Thank you for the question. I read several articles about that, and we did not really experiment about that. We just used this type of representation, but we can do that just to check the difference and also the pattern that a malware can take. Thank you for the question.
So we have 2 minutes more. Can I ask a very quick question?
Yeah.
So in your data encoding method, have you thought about how you going to preserve the semantic meaning of the original data? For example, let's say in your Android application, there might be system code like network access, open file, stuff like that. Okay, so when you transfer them into the images, especially when you apply GAN is very popular to produce unrealistic data. Okay, so then when GAN produce synthetic data, so within that synthetic data, there may not be a semantic meaning of Android system code. Have you thought about that or have you addressed that?
Thank you for the question. As I said during the last part, it will be part for the future works. Also because we usually adopt the explainability. So we will check if the original can be compared with the GANs, and if the GANs can also be represented, of course, 100% sure, a good representation for the augmentation.
Okay, because it is okay for images when you clip the sample or produce synthetic data, but especially when you apply this technical structural data like system call into images, then it can produce some semantic, meaningless data set.
Yeah,
so that can actually mislead the training of the algorithms.
Yeah, absolutely. It's also possible to see over there, for example, for trusted application, that missing some parts.
Yeah.
So, absolutely, yes, 100%.
Okay. Let's thanks for this.